Just Ask a Pro, Diaz and Larsen. Their number 801-596-1661. 596-1661. Your consultation with Diaz and Larsen, absolutely free to sit down and talk about your situation. If you've got a question right now, call 470-570 or 670-KBER. Tim from Diaz and Larsen is here. Ronnie, what's your question for Diaz and Larsen?
Oh, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Going through a divorce, and I just don't know, we got a ton of bills, and should I wait on this till the divorce is over, or do it now? Will she be on it, or what's the best advice for that?
That's a good question when you're going through a divorce and you got a bunch of bills that piled up during the marriage, and...
Well, and they're technically both your bills.
Right.
How do you do that? What do you do?
If you can get along well enough to come in my office twice, file together. You'll save money like crazy, because if you each file separately, you're each paying separate filing fees, credit counseling fees, attorney's fees, where if you come in together, you can combine all that. So you're going to save a ton of money, and your divorce is going to be a whole lot easier if all that debt is gone before the final decree.
What if, Ronnie, if you don't mind me asking here, what if Ronnie does it alone? Does it going to leave the ex responsible for any of those bills?
Anything she was on, anything your ex was on, your ex is going to remain responsible for if they don't file with you.
See, that just to me sounds weird, because you could really get somebody.
And I definitely get people in my office that is the goal. And
really? They come in there saying...
I'm okay with it. I mean, if you really want to do that, I'll still help you out. But if you can get along pre-divorce and file together, you're going to save money.
Well, I can't get her to do anything with me. That's why we're going through the divorce,
Well, yeah,
it's come on in.
I try to tell her it'd be best, I think, to do it all, or she's going to have to pay for it and all that.
So would you ever, Tim, take it upon yourself to, say, have a consultation with this guy and then call his wife and say...
That would be a huge conflict. No,
Okay.
If you don't want to file jointly, I'm not going to contact your ex-spouse.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Ronnie.
So,
Thanks.
but
Thanks.
what I would do is go in and talk to Tim in person, because obviously it's a, personal and touchy situation going through a divorce, so there may be things he
And
may
if you're
have
not
wanted
going to be
mention.
able to talk spouse into doing it with you jointly, don't bring spouse in, because you can create a conflict, and then I won't be able to represent either one of you.
Oh.
So if you know you want to do it on your own, don't bring the spouse
Or if
in.
there's even a chance, just come by yourself first.
Got it.
And,
Yeah,
okay.
get that consultation.
If I find out that my ex did file for a divorce without including me, would it be advantageous of me to...
Did you say divorce or for a
I was going to say, you
divorce?
should probably know if she filed for divorce.
Yeah, you'd know about that.
No, not the divorce, but a bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Filed for a bankruptcy, and then I find out that she did that.
Right.
It'd be pretty to my advantage to go in and start a bankruptcy on my own.
Absolutely,
wouldn't it?
because you're going to be stuck with everything. Yeah, And if you file a Chapter 13, you can actually protect a cosigner, but not in a Chapter 7.
Okay.
And most people don't protect the cosigner.
Interesting. One other question I wanted to ask. A friend of mine was fine on his current mortgage, but was having an issue paying on the second mortgage.
Okay.
The second mortgage wanted to foreclose on the house,
Right.
trying to get, I guess, permission from the
First.
original, the first. You couldn't just bankrupt pieces of your finances, could you?
No, you have to list everybody. But interestingly, if you have a second mortgage and no equity over your first mortgage, a Chapter 13 could be ideal for you, because we could actually wipe out the second.
Okay.
And that's a lot of people don't know that in a Chapter 13 you can actually, it's called stripping the second mortgage lien. And only in a 13 you can do it, and only under certain circumstances. But that's the real reason for a good consultation, because if you file on your own, you're not going to know how to do that.
No, absolutely not, man. And I think it would be silly for anybody to file on their own without knowing.
Exactly, and finally get, even if you survive it and get through it, then realize you could have stripped your second mortgage had you known how.
Yeah, and how important is that? And think
Right.
about the money it's going to save you.
Absolutely.
No kidding.
Wow. It's kind of like I think about you need to amputate a finger, and so you take a pocket knife out and you start cutting it off. And sure, you can get that finger cut off, but think about you might get
The repercussions afterwards.
Yeah. So
not
wouldn't you
doing
go
it with
have
the
a
doctor.
doctor cut it off.
I think Mick just wrote my next commercial.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't cut your own finger off, would you?
That was
I mean,
good.
sure you could.
Wow. You couldn't remove your own
Just
appendix,
in time
would you?
for Halloween. Thanks, Mick.
Yeah.
I get thinking a lot about tax situations, and there's just no way to avoid paying taxes, even in bankruptcy.
Not necessarily.
So there are some ways.
There are some ways. That's why you need, and especially right now where we're nearing the end of the year, you definitely want to come in for a consultation before you put yourself in a bankruptcy or use somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. If you're expecting a large refund and you file now, you're not going to get that refund. So timing and planning comes into it very importantly at this time of year.
Okay. This might be redundant, but for maybe some new listeners again, some people think they're going to fool the system, and they're thinking to themselves, "Well, I'm going to declare bankruptcy, but before I do that, I'm going to go out and buy a car." The bankruptcy court knows everything you've done, basically, don't they?
They can easily find out. Yes.
Could you be criminally charged in situations
Absolutely.
like that?
If you commit bankruptcy fraud, you could be criminally charged.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think
it's happened.
And I think too, Tim, that's why a lot of people do it on their own because they don't want to have to tell a lawyer about what they did because the lawyer's going to tell them you can't do that.
Well, but we're also here to be your advocate. You need to tell us everything so we can help protect you. I mean, the worst thing is if I have a client who supposedly has told me everything, and then get in front of that trustee and their mindset changes and they're under oath, and all of a sudden they're telling the trustee things I've never heard of. It's not going to work out well for you.
Yeah, God, could you imagine? I can only imagine being in that situation as you, Tim, going, "What?"
Yeah, it's a lot of
what?
Okay.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Trustee, I'm sorry, he never said anything to me about that.
It's a lot of the trustees can tell if you knew or not too. They know.
And how many trustees are there? Do you know all of them?
I do.
Do you have a good relationship with all of them?
Several Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustees. Chapter 13, there's only one. He's a standing trustee.
And these aren't judges, are they?
No, they're not.
Okay. I'm stalling a little bit. I see we got some phones ringing, so I'm seeing if any of these are questions for us. Again, to get a hold
They're
of...
going through everything with Jimbo. It's like, I'm not the one you have to talk to here.
Diaz and Larsen, their number, 801-596-1661.
All right.
Let's go to Ashley. Ashley, what's your question for Diaz and Larsen?
We bought our son, he's 17, we bought him a vehicle last year, and they told us that we were going to have to either buy it back or sell it.
Who told you that?
Who told you that?
An attorney that we spoke with.
Okay.
Now, I'm wondering, now that he's going to be 18 in December, if we can just sell it to him, or is that going to cause issues?
Well, it actually depends on how much you paid for the vehicle, how much equity there is in the vehicle, how long ago it was. It could be a possibility. Selling something to a family member or a friend is always risky because you're transferring an asset to an insider. However, if you're selling it for market value and can prove that another buyer who's not related would have paid the same amount, you could be safe. But again, we want to look at equity and what you do with the money that he pays you for that car.
Okay.
So it may be a possibility, but it's definitely, there's a lot of steps we want to look at. Are you currently in a bankruptcy or just looking at filing?
We were going to file last year, but didn't due to
the car
tax
situation?
reasons.
Okay.
So we held off on it, and I was hoping that we weren't going to have to buy back the vehicle and we could just sell it to him instead.
Let's look at it. Come in for a free consultation. I'd be happy to look at the details of it and see what's best for you.
Okay, that would be awesome. Thank you.
And again,
Thanks,
Ashley, free consultation, man. You're getting professional advice for free.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
You bet. It's Diaz and Larsen, 801-596-1661. And I don't see why you wouldn't. If you get an opportunity to talk with a professional and somebody that knows the ins and outs of everything, and it's not going to, why wouldn't you take that opportunity?
Right.
And then again, I don't know why everybody doesn't just call you in the first place.
No kidding. We try. We lose him?
We lost James. James was there, but he is gone now already. That was quick. All
right, we'll see if he calls back. But
yeah. So is there anything else? When you leave here, Tim, I always wonder if you think to yourself, I wanted to mention, or I wish I would have talked about. Is there anything that comes up in your mind that...
Honestly, today, just dealing with people today would be tax issues and personal injury claims.
Personal injury claims?
If you have a personal injury claim, you can still do bankruptcy, but make sure you divulge that information. There are so many things that need to be done appropriately if you have a personal injury claim and you're in bankruptcy.
How about inheritance and stuff like that? You have to mention all that
inheritance,
stuff, don't you?
I definitely want. Yeah, inheritance can be a great thing unless you're currently in a bankruptcy. Then it's not necessarily a great thing.
Wow. How about if the inheritance isn't there yet because the person's still alive, you file for bankruptcy, and say a year later the person dies and leaves you money?
It honestly depends on the chapter. If it happens that long after and you're in a Chapter 7, you're going to be safe. If you're in a Chapter 13, that's an ongoing concern because you're making payments, and you're going to have to turn that money over. Yeah, so if you think, if Grandma's got a lot of money and you think it's going to come down, you may want to wait a little bit.
I would do Weekend at Bernie's with her till that was over.
You may want to just figure that out.
Glasses, prop her up, take her everywhere till that bankruptcy was over.
We got James back. James, what's your question for Diaz and Larsen?
All right, my parents retired and they didn't want their house anymore, so they filed for bankruptcy and basically walked away from the house. They were current on it, so I took it over. The house was never reaffirmed on, but I've been making payments on it for roughly about 3 years now. What can it be like refinance with the HARP, or do they have to reaffirm on it, or what do we have to do on that?
Reaffirmations and mortgages are tricky. You did the right thing because they didn't want the debt on it by not reaffirming. And most of the time, that's pretty much what happens on mortgages. You don't reaffirm in case something happens down the road. Because if you were going to reaffirm on that mortgage and then something happened to where you had to give that house back, you couldn't because you reaffirmed on it. At this point, is the house in your name or is it in their names?
It's still in their name, but they've signed over a notarized document saying that they've given it to me.
So did they quit claim it to you?
It has not been filed, but
Okay.
it's basically just a notarized document.
Well,
Right.
this sounds like a scary situation to me, Tim.
Right. So if it's still in their name, only they're going to be able to refinance. But they're perfectly allowed to go out and refinance it. Or if they wanted to quit claim it to you so it indeed is your home, then you could refinance the mortgage into your name.
So would the quit claim be the best idea?
Yeah, it's easiest.
Okay, sweet.
I would suggest, James, just making sure that you get your ducks in the right row and you don't make a mistake to call these guys.
Yeah, and also we want to make sure that their bankruptcy case is discharged and closed so we're not dealing with any issues there.
Yeah, it's been discharged and closed, and they were just worried that they'd have to reopen the bankruptcy and reaffirm on the house.
No, if the trustees issued a no-asset report and closed the case, they're okay.
God, I'd be so afraid of this situation.
Right.
If I was James making payments on this house, I would be scared that it's going to get taken away from me.
And again, and James brings up a lot of good points, but also just because the case is discharged does not mean it's closed. So always check and make sure that your case is closed before you start doing anything like that.
Wow.
A discharge order is issued automatically after a certain amount of time. You want the case to be closed.
Okay.
Wow. Good luck with that, James.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
But if you do have any more questions, call
Yeah,
Tim
give me a call.
and
Is that a good
Make
way
sure.
to do that? To have them walk away from it and instead of selling it to the son?
Well, so
I guess if they sold it to the son, then they would be.
Right.
And even if you were like giving your son the deal and you had, say, $100,000 in equity, but you sold it for what you owed.
what I'm assuming happened is, so obviously it sounds like James is the one making the payments in this situation. So parents probably didn't want it anymore, didn't want to make the payments. So they've let it go. But the lender's not going to foreclose on it as long as somebody's making the payments, which in this case is James.
Okay.
But James wants to make sure the house
Kidding.
is titled in his
Yeah.
name, so he's not just making payments on something that's not his.
So would that be a better idea than reverse mortgaging even?
Reverse mortgage would benefit his parents,
But not
then
him.
James wouldn't necessarily
house
be
at
able to
the
get
end.
that home.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow,
Gosh, so
that
many
gets tricky,
things. Yeah, no
right?
kidding.
Yeah, and that's where we were talking earlier. So many different things that why would you want a chance doing this on your own?
Can you imagine if this were a drinking game?
Would be drunk.
my head just started hurting.
Right?
Yeah.
Get a hold of Diaz and
Give some
Larsen,
aspirin.
801-596-1661, 596-1661. It's Mick and Allen. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.
596-1661, 1661,